Okay, just come off track, taking my helmet off. Gonna take some time now to review the information from the Garmin Catalyst to help me improve my driving for the next session. And in this case, I'm using what I call the 5-15-1 process. And the idea here is that if I have 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, and I want a quick hit of information, I can get it from the Catalyst. Then if I have 15 minutes, well, I can spend a little bit more time, but still, I want to get the information quickly and move on and get ready to get back on track. And then if I have 1 hour or more, then I can really geek out on the information and totally dig into a lot more detail. But one of the things I really want to point out here is that I don't need to download this to a computer. In fact, I don't even need a computer. Everything is self-contained right here on the Catalyst. So the very first thing I do is I just reach up, I click on Review, click on the last session, and now I'm going to look at what you would do, or what I do, with 5 minutes. First thing I look at is just my best lap time and my optimal lap time. And you'll see here that there's quite a difference there, which means I didn't put together the optimal lap. I didn't put all the pieces together yet. That may be because of traffic, it may be because of the number of laps, or it may be that I'm just not consistent enough with my driving. And we'll look into that. The other thing I look at really quickly is the top 3 variance, and that is the variance between the top 3 laps. And to me, anything that's less than half a second that's good consistency. From half a second to a second, pretty good, but consistency might be one of the things that I would want to work on in that case. If it's over a second, probably the biggest priority for me is just to get more consistent with my driving. So that's the first thing I look at. But what I also want to do is I just want to click on the laps here for a second, and I want to look at the number of laps. In this case, I only did 4 laps, really just the last 3 that were kind of up to speed. And you can see I did a couple of 39s, and then I did a 38, a high 38. But if I piece together all the segments from these 3 laps, there's sort of this intelligent piece in the Catalyst that goes, the optimal, if you pieced all those together, it would be a 135. So over 3 seconds quicker. I want to look at how can I do that? So I'm going to jump back to the main screen here. The first thing I'm going to look at from here now after this is I'm going to look at the 3 highlighted segments. Those are the 3 opportunities that the Catalyst has picked out. And it has identified the 3 highest priorities for improving my lap time. So I can look at opportunities here. Comes up opportunity 1. I could actually save almost a second, 0.96 of a second here in this little section. And this section here looks pretty straight, but if you know this track, it kind of up and over some hills, and this little curve will show you that in a second here. But I just look at this and go, okay, what I want to do is notice where the delta here in the time starts to split. And I can see that it's towards the end of that segment, approximately where I'm going to start braking. So right away, I'm already kind of going, it's probably in the braking zone. And I can look at the acceleration, deceleration, where that starts. You know, it's later. The deceleration where it's dropping down is later in there. But I can very quickly, I already have kind of that's probably what it's going to be. It's in that section. Let's look at the braking. Oh, look at that. So you can see the optimal is in pink purple here, and it's quite a bit later. The whole brake zone is later. And, it's 371 feet later, and I braked 30% harder, and I spent about a third of a second less time actually on the brakes. So the gain in lap time in this segment, and again, where I can gain a second, pretty much all came from moving the brake zone in. So I can look at the apex here. Apex is pretty close to the same, a little bit later, but that probably comes with moving my brake zone in a little bit. It moves the whole apex and turn in a little bit later as well. I can look at the speed, and I can zoom in and look at this and go, oh, the difference here from 70 miles an hour, it's 80 miles an hour at that apex point. So big difference. Turn-in point is around 71 to 83, 12 miles an hour difference. And again, that comes from moving that brake zone in. I can see it in the speed trace as well here. So that's what I'm going to do and go, okay, in 5 minutes, I'm just going to focus on opportunity 1 because I know there's almost a second right in that section alone. So I'm going to go back and go to the laps, click on optimal. And what I want to do just before I go back is get a good, clear mental image of what it is I want to do. Now, this is the optimal lap. Everything put together, my best segments put together. In the Catalyst, it's It figures out which segments are the best and then stitches them together in this video. I think this is so powerful to be able to actually see my best lap. This is what a 1:35 lap would be. This is what a lap 3 seconds faster than I actually went would look like. So it's really helping me get that mental image of what it is I want to do. You might have noticed there was just that quick little kind of, you can see where the video was stitched together between one segment to another. The Catalyst automatically does that. And it does it in a way that's, again, it's intelligent. It doesn't just put a lap, that section together if it's not possible to be done. This is the section where I move my brake zone in. I can see where I brake later, clip past that later apex, and got set up for this whole section of track coming up here that leads up this long hill. And again, the little change of segment there. And it's so important for me to be able to look at this and go, okay, now I've got a clear mental image of it. If I've got another minute and 35 seconds, which I do here, I'm going to just sit here for a moment after the video finishes. I've watched it a couple of times. I'm now got to clear my mind. I'm actually going to watch that. If I want, I can actually just go back to that segment and just watch this segment here and watch it over and over and over again and go, yes, that's what I want to do. Okay, I'm ready to drive. Let's go. So I would then head back and go to drive, and away we go for the next section. Okay, so now let's say I have 15 minutes before I go back on track. In this case, we're going to just take a little bit more time, dig in just a little bit deeper, but I'm going to go through the first few steps pretty much the same, looking at the best lap time, optimal lap time, that variance, look at my laps, the number of laps I did, look at the opportunities. But in this case, what I'm going to do is focus on 3 things when I go back on track. I have a rule that when you go on track, never try to do more than 3 things. The Catalyst picks those 3 things and it prioritizes them. You know, I would go to this and go through the same process that I did for the very first session, where if I only had 5 minutes, look at opportunity 1. But in this case, I'd also look at opportunity 2. And it's this corner turn 2 at this track. And I'm going to look at this. Again, I could save almost 9/10 of a second in this section of track. And I can look at this again where it starts to separate in the delta and the time here. And again, it's probably more on the entry, and you can see coming out of the corner, it's pretty much the same. So my exit of the corner was consistent, but in this section right about here where the delta starts to change, I can also see it in the deceleration rate. My braking was a little later and a little harder. I can see that in the deceleration. So pretty sure when I click on braking, it's going to come up and it's going to say I braked 95 feet later, I braked 27% harder, and I spend a little bit less time on the brakes as well. And you can see it in the pink purple part of this, that I actually moved the whole brake zone in, and you can see that it's a little bit later into the corner there. The apex, pretty close, the same. You know, it shows it's a little bit earlier, but it's really close. Right there, really close. But speed, I can see that, you know, my turn-in speed is 8.6 miles an hour faster. So that's coming from moving that brake zone in. Again, probably with a few more laps, I'm getting more comfortable with the brakes. So I'm thinking that, okay, I need to think about braking a little harder and a little bit later going into turn 2 as well. I then go to opportunity 3. And this is turn 3A at this track, very tight hairpin corner. And I can see from here, again, it's later. It's actually more the acceleration coming out of this corner. So, you know, the braking's probably, you know, it's a little bit different, but, you know, a little bit less time on the brakes. Apex, it's a little bit earlier, actually, my ideal one. That allowed me to get out of the corner. And again, what I'm going to focus on here is just getting back to power coming out of this corner a little bit quicker, because that's where the advantage is. So that's my opportunity 3, and that was, again, 0.86 of a second. So between these 3 opportunities of 9/10, 8/10, 8/10, I've almost found my whole 3 seconds that I'm looking for. And now I know, don't go looking for it in turn 8, don't go looking for it in turn 6. Look for it, first of all, on the entry to turn 5, entry to turn 6, and the exit out of turn 3. I'm really clear on that, of what my opportunities are. And once again, what I'm going to do is go back before I go on track. Again, what I want to do is I want to watch my optimal lap, get that cemented in my mind. And after I've watched it, again, I can kind of go back and I can just watch this one segment. And this is opportunity 2. We already looked at opportunity 1 earlier on, but I can see where I'm braking here, coming off the brakes, turning into this long sweeping corner. And if I want, I can just kind of skip ahead, and this is the entry into 3A. And again, what I'm looking for here is there's my apex, clipping right past there, getting back to power, and it actually, I can see that I got out of that corner just a little bit quicker. So I'm getting that clear in my mind before I go out on the track. And then again, this is where I would say, take a little time to close your eyes, visualize, and that's what I do as I now sit in the car, and I'm actually going to visualize driving the track, coming through turn 1, coming in that braking zone, applying the brakes now, easing off the brakes as I turn into the corner. I can feel the G loads building up, and now I'm coming down into 3A. I'm braking hard, turning in, clipping that apex, getting back to power, good squirt of the throttle coming in between those corners. So I'm imagining those things, visualizing those things before I go back on track. And that's super powerful, taking what the Catalyst is giving me and turning that into the mental model in my mind, so then when I go back on track, I can accomplish that. So there, now we've finished. That's what we do with 15 minutes. What would we do if we had a whole hour? Okay, now we have an hour, 1 hour or more. So we can dig in a little deeper here. And, there's a point in time where you can get too analytical, and sometimes you're not analytical enough. That's one of the things I like about the Catalyst is you can kind of take it as far as you want. If you want to dig in super deep into the data, you can do that. In this case, again, we would do the same thing if we had more than an hour or more. Click on that last session, we go through the exact same thing we went through. Actually, let's just say we've gone through the same thing that we've gone through in the 15-minute session. So we've gone through, looked at the best lap, the optimal lap, the variance. We've looked at the 3 opportunities, and we've actually walked through each of those 3 opportunities. This time, though, with a little bit more time, I'm actually going to dig into the segments and get just a little bit more detail. And this is really, really fascinating stuff. So you can see that in segment 1, which is coming into this big long turn to 180 or more than 180 degree corner, there's 9/10 of a second that we can gain here. On my best lap, my turn entry was 8.6 miles an hour faster. So big time. That's really helpful to know that. My exit speed was about half a mile, 0.6 of a mile an hour difference. So I know that I'm not going to gain a lot on the exit of the corner, but there's a lot to be gained on the entry to the corner. And my minimum speed through the middle of the corner is 0.4 miles an hour difference. So again, not a lot there. All the benefit, the opportunity here is going to come from corner entry speed. And again, as we dug into that opportunity, we found that it's all going to come from the braking into there. And we can dig into positioning. We can, dig in and look at the line through the corner. You can see the optimal is actually turning a little earlier into there. But again, most of it's going to come from that braking part of it. We can look at the time through there, the track usage. This is really kind of an interesting and really helpful tool. Is I'm using 80% of the lap as opposed to 74% of the track. The radius is actually a little bit tighter because remember I came in a little tighter into there as I braked into the corner. Type of apex, it's a late apex. And the track outer turning rate is how quickly I'm letting the car unwind out of the corner. You can look at speed, the detail on the speed. Again, we can really dig into this stuff. So a lot of it just depends on how far you want to go into this. You can look at the turn entry speed, turn minimum speed, exit speed, and the straight speed coming into the corner. Acceleration and deceleration, same kind of thing. And the max acceleration coming out of the corner is actually a little bit higher here, quite a bit higher, and that does tell me that there is a little bit there, just kind of being a little bit more aggressive coming out of it. Deceleration quite a bit higher because remember I moved my brake zone into that one. So again, segment 1, I can dig into that. There's a lot of information here. We can dig into this into segment 2, and actually going back and looking at that again. Remember we found that there was about 9/10 of a second opportunity there. Corner entry speed was 4.8 miles an hour up. Exit speed was up by 4.3 miles an hour. And my min speed was actually a little bit slower. So this is maybe a classic example of in slow, out fast. Now, not in a lot slower, 0.3 of a mile an hour. So just a little bit slower on the entry, but it helped me get out of the corner better. Segment 3, there's 0.3 of a second, and this is one of the ones that was not part of the opportunities because there's only 0.3 of a second. Obviously, at some point I want to dig into that and really work on that, but it's not the biggest priority right now. In this case, you can see the turn entry speed was on my optimal lap was up 3 miles an hour. On my best lap in that, or best segment through there, was up 3 miles an hour. But my exit speed was down 2.8 miles an hour. This may be a case where, I tried to, and the min speed was up 1.5. It may be a case of I was trying to carry too much speed through the corner. It actually hurt my exit. So in the back of my mind, again, it's not the highest priority. It's not one of the top 3 opportunities. But in the back of my mind, I'm going to think, just be a little bit patient in that corner. Again, we can go through and we can look at position. We can zoom in. We can look at the speed. We can look at that. We can look at the acceleration and deceleration as we go through here. You can see we can dig into all of that, all of the detail. We could spend hours digging into each of the segments, going through all the segments here, going through segment 5, segment 6, which is coming up the hill. Segment 7 coincides with turn 7. Segment 8 is turn 8. And then coming out onto the front straightaway again. And again, we can go back and, we can look at our optimal lap through this segment. So we can kind of just dig in and go really look at the detail on all of this stuff. So that's what we can do. And again, what I would do before going back on track every single time is, again, really important. I want to get that clear mental vision of that optimal lap. So that's how I would use 1 hour or more. I would just dig into all the details and then bring it down. Again, prioritize what it is I want to do and when I get back on track. Because the more I focus on just the most important things, the more likely it is I'm going to do that. So that's how I use the 5-15-1 process. The idea, again, is if you've got 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or 1 hour or more, the Catalyst can give you what you need to help you focus on what it is you want to work on to improve the next time you go on track. And that is the most important thing. You can get super heavy into the analytical details and the data and all that information, and that's important sometimes to get more clear on what it is you want to do. But sometimes the best thing to do is just get really focused on one thing, go back on track and do that, or 3 opportunities and go back on track and work on that. So if you're relatively new to the Catalyst or you've been using it for a while, give this 5-15-1 process a try. Give it a try. And then over time, you may fine-tune it a little bit to your own needs. But the whole idea of this is to help you become an even better driver. So have fun out there.